Hey, I want to take a moment to tell you about Anchor. I absolutely love Anchor, and it's the easiest way to make a podcast. That's why I use it. Let me explain. It's completely free, and there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and every other podcast platform out there. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Switch to Anchor and never pay a hosting fee again. What you need to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to the 99% Loco Podcast.
Hello there, podcast family. Welcome to another week. Specifically, we are at episode number 36. If you're new to this podcast, each week I am bringing stories of Nashville and Middle Tennessee-based entrepreneurs, business owners, organizations, and other creators out there. We don't just talk about the boring stuff of what happens between 9 and 5. Everyone has their own story, their own unique upbringing, and a passion for why they're doing what they're doing. I personally love the sense of community around Nashville and get my kicks from sharing these stories. This week's guest is Mignon Francois. Mignon is the founder and CEO of the Cupcake Collection. She will also accept the title of Director of Joy. While crunching numbers and creating the craze are amongst her job requirements, Mignon's favorite responsibilities of her role are giving hugs, listening, and mentoring her team and other up-and-coming entrepreneurs who seek after her grassroots experience. You see, Mignon developed an iconic flavor in her historic Germantown neighborhood with a concept that was never seen before. And out of this, it would ignite a new movement to the area for other business concepts that might not otherwise have considered doing business in North Nashville. If you Google Mignon, the first thing you will see is how she turned $5 into a $10 million business through her faith and belief. I'm so pumped to share her story on this podcast and hope that it can really be an inspiration and lesson for all entrepreneurs and creators out there. Mignon speaks all over and wherever her paths take her, sharing her joy, story from brokenness to success, and about believing in the power of your own ideas. So get ready for all things faith, cupcakes, and spreading joy. This is going to be a real treat. Get it? All right. Let's get to it. Here's my conversation with the founder and CEO of the Cupcake Collection, Mignon Francois. So, Mignon, it's an absolute pleasure to get you on this podcast. If you don't mind, I'm just going to read a couple things from your bio to kick us off here. You're the founder, CEO, and it says Director of Joy of the Cupcake Collection. So using your follow your spirit approach, which I want to hear a lot more about, you developed an iconic flavor that drew lines and attention to the hip nature of your historic Germantown neighborhood that hadn't seen this concept developed prior. I think you planted roots in around 2008 with the Cupcake Collection, which offers award-winning cupcakes, and your personal business savviness has earned you titles of Woman of Legend and Merit by Tennessee State University, Emerging Business Leader of the Year, and Black Enterprise Magazine Family Business of the Year Award.
Yes.
So I think I saw you were still in New Orleans because of the tropical storm. Were you able to get back to Nashville? Or are you still down there?
I just got in late last night.
Perfect. So where in Nashville are you sitting today? Are you actually at the Cupcake Collection?
Yes, I'm at the Cupcake Collection right now.
And I know we were chatting previously to recording. You were down here in my neck of the woods a couple of weeks ago, speaking at the Spring Hill Chamber of Commerce luncheon. It sounds like you've done that before. So that's really cool. I was excited to see that and then have you on the podcast. So I want to format things a little bit differently. Typically, I would start with talking about your background and lead up to what you're currently doing. But I first want to talk about the Cupcake Collection as a business in Nashville first,
Mm-hmm.
and then spend the majority of the rest of the time talking about your story, because to me, that's what's most important and what's so inspirational from your journey. So
Okay.
the Cupcake Collection, it's considered a destination bakery. I've never been there. I'm looking forward to visiting. There's still a lot of local places I want to visit, specifically dessert places. So you're
Uh-huh.
on the list.
Yay.
You have two locations, Nashville and then New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just kind of tell me what a trip to the Cupcake Collection is like?
A trip to the Cupcake Collection should be like a joy. I am a kid who loves cake, and I think there's always reason for a celebration. So when you get here, it's like coming over to my house. It's the place where I raised my children, and so the spirit of the Francois family exists here. So because I'm a person who's over the top and easily excitable, you should feel that energy when you walk into the door and taste the love that's placed on the inside of the product when you take a bite. Because we don't use a lot of ingredients, our ingredients list is very short. Because I want the flavor of the product to speak to what it is. So, because of that, also, we don't even have fancy names. So coming in should feel like you came over to our house and that Mignon Francois made you something special. That's what it should be like.
Well, great. And going back to your bakery, it actually is in your home, correct?
Yeah, it's in the house where I raised my children.
Okay. Okay. And I think I was doing some research. I think you have daughters, right?
I have four sons and I have three daughters.
Wow. Big family.
Yeah, we're growing even because now I have a son-in-law and I have two granddaughters, and we're welcoming a grandson in a matter of days.
So I had to chuckle because I'm kind of on a health kick right now. Like a lot of people are
Uh-huh.
coming out of the whole COVID
Yes,
thing.
yeah, you didn't want to gain the COVID-19.
Right. So there's a FAQ on your website, and one of the questions says how many calories are in your cupcakes, and I really just had to laugh out loud because it says our cupcakes are made with love, and we believe love conquers all, including calories.
Yes.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
We feel like if that's the case about love, then it's got to include calories as well. And the thing about it is I lost 50 pounds one year eating cupcakes every day. I believe your body knows what to do with the ingredients it was naturally designed to consume. And so as long as you do it in moderation, I think it's eat a cupcake, take a trip around the block, you'll be fine. I mean, I think everything has to happen in moderation. I really do say that lightly, but I think there's always a reason to have something and enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. So I know we're going to talk mostly about Nashville, but so your New Orleans location, where is that actually located at?
So my New Orleans location is in the historic Garden District. And while the Nashville location speaks to where my children grew up, the New Orleans location speaks to where I grew up. And so where I pounded the pavement and caught the bus, in New Orleans, we caught the city bus from the time I was 10. And there was a lot of independence there for me. Our public schools and our private schools used our public transit system. And
Hmm.
so I pounded the pavement many days and many years, uptown New Orleans. And so going back there was paying homage to where I'm from and where my family still does live.
Well, great, and that's a good transition. So let's dig right into your story about growing up, your background. So what can you tell me a little bit more about what your childhood was like?
Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans. We Others may only eat to live, but in New Orleans, we live to eat. Some of my fondest memories, and those who know me know that I'm a donut connoisseur. I'm on the search for the best donut in the country because I believe I got cake on lock. But some of my fondest memories were of becoming fiscally responsible starting at the age of 10. I was tasked with getting my bus transfer money once a month from my mother, who rationed everything and was very frugal. And as a single mom, she had to part out everything that we needed. And so I would have to catch a transfer bus from where we lived out in the suburbs into town where I went to school. And so she would give me all of the money that I needed for transfers at the beginning of the month. So if I didn't have any at the end of the month, that meant I had to take a longer route home and actually walk a big portion. Whereas if I allotted my money right, I could get let off the bus right at the street that I lived on and only have to walk one block. Well, here's the problem. A donut from the famous Mackenzie's only cost me 15 cents, which was the same amount of a bus transfer. So there were
Quite
many
a
days,
dilemma.
there were many days that I made the decision to go have a buttermilk drop at Mackenzie's, and just take the long walk home. Being that I wanted to share that memory for somebody as I created a legacy with our family bakery here in Nashville and now in New Orleans. To be able to be a part of that thing that you set aside specifically to enjoy it. And so my parents taught us fiscal responsibility. They taught us to make good decisions. You had to then live with the decisions that you made. And you would have to um, be responsible for that. There was no one else to blame in doing that. And I think that all shaped how the Cupcake collection was going to be born later, when I needed to get out of debt, when I needed to stop drowning in brokenness, was to take responsibility for decisions that I was a part of, that caused me to be in the predicament that I was financially in. And I wanted to do something that made me feel joy, and that was cake. Problem is, I didn't know how to bake. I had to quickly learn how to put the ingredients together, and with the help of my grandmother, who was known along the bayou for always having a meal ready, and always you could find cake at her house. She gave me the ingredients that I was going to need in order to succeed.
So when did you actually get to Nashville?
We came to Nashville in 2004, looking for a better opportunity for our children. We accepted a position here, and as soon as we got here, the position that my husband took fell through.
Mm.
And so, without that, we sold things to get here. Um, and I prayed and asked God for something that I could do to save my family. I was listening to a financial guru who was telling people you could get out of debt by having a bake sale or a garage sale. And I thought, as I would listen on the radio to this newfound joy that I had, because I grew up listening to talk radio in New Orleans. I was searching for a good talk radio show when I got to Nashville where I could learn something every day. And as I was scanning the radio station, I heard people screaming, "We're debt free!" And the way that they felt, I felt it, and I wanted what they had. So I feverishly began to listen and look for that show daily. And I began to apply the things that my mother and my father had taught us from the beginning, that we were not to be in debt, that we were supposed to pay for the things and live within our means, and just just things that had kind of fallen away from me as an adult. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to be in the situation that I was in. So I desperately wanted out. And I was willing to do whatever it took um, to let my children know that they could find safety with me, that our lights would be on as long as I had something to do with it, that our water would run as long as it was in my power to control. And so we started to live like no one else so that later we could live like no one else. And that's when my life began to change.
I have to tell you about a service that I've used for several years now. It's called Second Nature. Second Nature is air filters delivered when it's time to change them. Yes, air filters for your home. It's something you often forget about, like changing the batteries in your smoke detector. And if you're like me, you might have bad allergies and end up having allergens and other gross stuff floating around your homes when you forget to change your filters. Second Nature is a subscription service for air filters. Sign up and choose the exact filters you need at the quality level you want. Schedule your automatic deliveries and never stress about filters again. Plus, shipping is always free. Let me tell you, I have 2 different size filters in my home, and every few months my new filters arrive in the mail, and I never actually have to remember to go to the store and replace them, and remembering your filter sizes is always a pain too. Second Nature wants to give you your first shipment of filters for free. Yes, absolutely free if you sign up today. All you need to do is go to 99percentlocalpod.com/Second Nature to get started. That's /SECONDNATURE. It's no secret your public story is starting out with $5 and growing your business to where it is today, to a multi-million-dollar company. Can you kind of fill me in on the background of that origin of that $5 and how that
Yeah.
happened?
So with that same, just following the principles that were set out from that financial freedom series, I was sitting in my home in an area of Nashville that in the Black community, we knew it as North Nashville, that was
Mm-hmm.
quickly being changed to a name that was sort of foreign in the area called Germantown. And Germantown was the first incorporated neighborhood in Nashville. And so this is the place where the Germans settled. It reminded us of home, which is why we came here. Sitting in the back of the house, trying to follow the Dave Ramsey baby step plan, I was putting what little money I had into envelopes and just trying to allot it to the basic necessities first, which is your rent, your roof over your head, and your basic utilities and food, shelter, those kinds of things. And I didn't have enough to do anything. And I still hadn't fed our family of 8 at that point. And all I had was $5 left. And I looked at that money and I said, okay, well, I'm from New Orleans. We would keep an entire vat of rice in our home. And I knew that I could buy red beans for $1 a pound. And that was what we were going to eat, along with ramen noodles here and there that were only 17 cents. Now, I didn't say anything about vegetables. I didn't say anything about meat. That's what I had decided that I was going to be able to live on. We weren't like many people who find themselves struggling, able to even qualify for things like public assistance. So when you go to work, you literally are working for food. And that's many Americans' same story. It's just never told. And so while my children never complained to anyone about the fact that they didn't know what they were going to eat when they got home, they did know that while they were at school, they needed to eat breakfast and lunch because we don't know what we're going to eat at night. They never complained about it and said, poor me or anything. It just kind of was the hand that was being dealt to us, and they found a way to always spin that in the positive. And so sitting back there, deciding that I was going to do something different, I had just decided how I was going to spend the $5 in the dark because our electricity was off at the time.
Mm.
My ex-husband, who I always refer to as my husband, was a contractor, and we had a generator hooked up to our home. He would go out in the day and work for money, and then we would use that to put gas in the generator so that our children could have normalcy when they got home. My neighbor knocked on the door and asked why I was sitting in the dark, and I told her it was because I was meditating. And so she wanted to let me get back to what I was doing, but wanted to offer that the cupcakes that I had been experimenting with, she wanted to give them to all of her clients for Christmas. And while she acknowledged that that was going to be 600 cupcakes, that I wouldn't be able to do it all at one time. Just give me some and I'll pay you to keep you going. Because while she didn't know our full situation, she knew our family well, and she had a clue about where we were. And so I agreed, knowing that I didn't have enough money to even go and get enough to start. I shut the door and I began to pray. And I questioned God about why he would let some people have a lot and some people have a little. I was
Hmm.
listening to some rap lyrics. Kanye West and Jay-Z have a song, a collaboration called Otis, in which Kanye says, they ain't see me because I pulled up in my other Benz. Last week I pulled up in my other Benz. And I was just like, God, seriously? He has options and they're luxurious, and I don't even have a car. But I heard God say to me in my soul, are you willing to do what he does to get what he has? And what that spoke to me was that work was going to be required of me. That if birds could be fed and they don't look like him, how much more would God be willing to let me have who looks like him? So I put on my shoes and I walked to the grocery store, and I gambled that $5 on an opportunity to feed my family for the rest of all time. And I came back and turned that 5 into 60 that night, and that 60 into 600 by the end of the week. And I began flipping that money for the last 12 years, to the tune of over 5 million cupcakes sold. We did it with no debt because no one would lend to me. We,
Wow.
I didn't have any credit. I didn't have any experience in the industry. I didn't have any knowledge of the product. I just believed that I could, and so I did. And that was 12 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. And, a quote that you said, I believe it was in your interview you did with Rachel Cruz, and
Hmm.
I had to type it out because it was so impactful. You said, it is in your brokenness that your potential becomes released.
Yes.
And that's really demonstrated right in what you just told me about your story.
I was cracking eggs one day in my sort of mixing area. I have a private area in the building where I create, and I called my assistant to the back, and I said, "Tanisha, come quickly." And she kind of knows what my urgencies feel like, and she's been with me for so long, and she came running. I said she came running with her camera and her pen, and she was like, "What am I doing?" I said, "Record this." And I began to crack eggs. And what I realized in that very moment about cracking eggs was that an egg would rot in all of its potential until you crack it. That it could be the greatest egg of all time, but it was just a bottled up bit of potential unless you had broken it. And that's what I was. In my brokenness, I thought I was ruined, but it was in my brokenness that my potential became realized. Once you break that egg, it can become many things. Once you throw that egg into boiling hot water, it just becomes hard. But once you break the shell, what's soft underneath it and the goodness that it can be, it can become a deviled egg. It can become a poached egg. It can become a fried egg. It become a scrambled egg. It can become an omelet. It can become nourishment for whatever you need. It's protein, and too much of it, it's high cholesterol. You know what I mean? But
Right. Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's nothing until you break it. I recently shared with a crowd that Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, but it was until he had a great fall that you know anything about Humpty.
Hmm.
He had to fail in order for his name to be great. He had to fall and to shatter into pieces before you ever knew who Humpty Dumpty was. And I believe that's where we get lost. That when we fall down and we're broken and people have hurt us and they have injured us and they've taken things from us and they've said we can't be anything and we get stuck there. But that's where our potential can be created into something amazing.
Hmm. Yeah. Very impactful. Thanks for sharing that. So let me ask you this, because you've been doing this, what'd you say, 12 years?
hmm 13.
What's
Well, I guess it makes
13?
it
Okay.
14 for me because I worked every day for 2 years like it was
Yeah.
a job before the store ever even opened. So the store will be 12 years old this year. So that's 14 years for me.
What would you say is the most challenging thing about running the business after 13 years?
Wow. The most challenging thing about running the business after 13 years probably still remains to be that it's a secret, that getting your name out, that it's this hidden treasure that we're still trying to proclaim from the mountaintops that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to know that we've been voted as the best cake in Nashville, the best cake in Tennessee. We're ranked in the top 10 in the nation, and yet we still run into people who say, Cupcake Collection, I've never heard of that. And so the challenge begins to be, what do we have to do to make people know that we're here and that we do this very well?
So on a related note, what ultimately keeps you going?
The joy that I get to share with other people and be a lighthouse in this community about what you can do if you believe. You don't have to have enough money. You don't have to have credit. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to have a bunch of people screaming your name. You just have to desire to make it, and you can. And being that example for the people who want to pick up the crumbs that I'm leaving behind on the trail matters so much to me that when I close my eyes and forever sleep, I want my granddaughters to be able to say, my grandmother was Mignon Francois, and I want that to matter. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, great. And that's a good segue into, um, how important community and family in Nashville is to you, because I know you do have a passion for teaching and mentoring, especially young entrepreneurs as
Yes.
well. You get booked all over to speak, sharing your insights on growing business in Nashville, surviving tough seasons, and sharing your story.
hmm
What's on your heart to teach young entrepreneurs? And to piggyback that, if there's someone wanting to start a business like yours, or really any business in general, what is the best advice that you think you could give them?
The best advice that I can give them is you speak what you seek till you see what you said. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, and it's not their responsibility to believe in you and what you've been tasked to do. It's your responsibility to do that. I want them to know that work is required of you, that it will not be easy. If it was easy, then everyone would be doing it. I want them to know that that voice inside of their head that's telling them that they can is the one that's telling them the truth. And that they should listen to that little gut inkling that says, turn left, turn right, do this, do that, and do it quickly. That in owning their now, they will win. Not waiting until you get the degree in order to start, not waiting until you have enough money in order to start, not waiting till you get all of the right equipment in order to start. Listen, I started the Cupcake Collection with a dorm-sized refrigerator and a KitchenAid mixer because that's what I could afford, and it would pass health code. As long as it would keep temperature, it was good enough for them. And I think all the time we're thinking that we need all this big, grandiose things like marketing and advertising and all of that. And all you just need to do is what's in your wheelhouse to do and do it well. One of my friends taught me this. He said, Superman changed in a phone booth, which lets you know that greatness doesn't need a lot of space.
Let's move towards wrapping up here. I do have some other questions.
Mhm.
You're obviously a very humble woman because you said, you still feel like you have to scream from the mountaintops to get the word out. But,
Mhm.
in a way, you're kind of a celebrity in Nashville.
Yeah. My
I
children
mean,
have to go anywhere with me.
well, I'd even say nationwide too, just because of a lot of the major networks and media
Mhm.
that's become interested in what you've done over the years. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you for
uh, let me ask you this. I know you've done a lot, you've experienced a lot, but is there anything that sticks out as one of the like coolest or most memorable opportunities you've had, whether, a radio or a TV event or some other event you've had the opportunity to speak at?
I think one of the coolest. Oh my gosh, that's so hard to say because I take it with so much humility when someone says, "Come and um, speak to my people." But when Dave Ramsey invited me at the beginning of the year last year to open up um, their sort of team meeting and
Hmm.
inspire them for the beginning of the year, it was a full circle moment for me. I had seen myself in a dream walking onto a stage, and I didn't know what I was doing. But when I got to do the business boutique back in October with Christy Wright, I saw that stage. And it was like God had shown me that I was going to be speaking in front of many people and that I had to just tell them that you can do it too. If I can be here, you can be here too. And that God is asking us to take these gifts that He's given us and spread them into the world. So I would have to say that sharing a stage with Dave Ramsey and being able to have their entire team wrap their arms around me. I've gotten to share the stage with Anthony O'Neill, who's also one of his personalities, and just been able to speak to his audience. One of my mentees sent me a video from Howard University, which is a historical Black university in DC,
Hmm.
of me on a TV screen being broadcast around the university, sitting on my porch with Anthony O'Neill talking about what you could do if you just deposit your faith currency into yourself. I was just in awe, not only for myself, but also for him, my mentee, who was there because I kicked him out of my rank saying, "It's time for you to fly." And he was there getting his PhD.
Hmm.
So I think if you put the little that you have in collaboration with the master who wants to partner with you, little becomes much.
Outside of the cupcake business, do you have time to do anything else? What do you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I love to walk on the Greenway.
Mm-hmm.
You will probably, I've run into so many people who say, "Hey, I know who you are." As I, try to, like I said, I eat cupcakes every single day. So that's one of my favorite things to do. Nashville has some of the greatest trails, one of the greatest trail systems. And so I think it's one of the most under recognized gems in our city. That can still be discovered, that you could almost commute to work on foot, no matter where you live, if you just hit the trail in the right, at the right location. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do here.
Well, cool. So you talked about being a donut connoisseur at the
Yes.
beginning. What's the best donut in Nashville?
Oh my gosh. In our family, that is a huge conversation. Our favorite donut in Nashville happens to exist in Hermitage in a little family owned operation called the Donut Palace. He does the Donut Palace. He does these croissants dipped in vanilla, sort of like glaze that are like 100 layers. And they call them dosants because it's a cross between a donut and a croissant. And to my son, who has been on this journey with me all along, eating donuts, because he's 5.5 years younger than the youngest one. So he's been with mommy the longest. And so it's a thing that we do as we travel around the nation. And to him, there's no greater donut in the entire world than their glazed donut. But to me, that dosant that Yi makes over at Donut Palace is hands down the best donut in Nashville.
Well, good to know. I will have to check that out.
Tell them that I sent you if you go over there.
Oh, I will. I will definitely. Okay. Let's end with this. Can you tell the listeners where they can find out about either you on social media or on the web or about the Cupcake Collection?
Yes, the Cupcake Collection is at thecupcakecollection.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. On Twitter, we're at Cupcake Tweets. And on Instagram, you can find me. That's Mignon.Francois. Or you can find the Cupcake Collection as well as the Cupcake Collection NOLA if you happen to be visiting in New Orleans.
Well, great, Mignon. This has been, like I said, an absolute pleasure. Your story is just so inspiring. I hope it can be an influence to all of my listeners.
Thank you so much for allowing me just to share this time with you. I promised God that if he would make me successful, I would tell anybody who would listen about what they could do if they believe. So thank you for helping me keep my promise.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can always email me at 99percentlocalpod@gmail.com. Or you can actually drop by the contact page on the website and send a voice message that may appear in a future episode. Speaking of the website, you can find it at 99percentlocalpod.com. And while you're there, make sure you catch up on any and all past episodes. If you'd like to support the show, you can do it in a few different ways. Please follow the podcast on Instagram or Facebook at 99percentlocalpod. Leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. The best thing you can possibly do is share this podcast with your friends who might want to check it out. Lastly, would you consider contributing to this podcast on a one-time or ongoing basis? All contributions that I receive, 10% of that goes to the Well Outreach in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And until next week, stay safe and be kind to those around you.